This is episode 705 of the Rio Grande Foundation's Tipping Point, New Mexico. I'm Paul Gessing.
And I'm Wally Drangmeister.
I'm president of the Rio Grande Foundation, New Mexico's free market think tank. You can find out more about the foundation at riograndefoundation.org. Wally, I was down in Las Cruces last week and giving a few talks. Been traveling around New Mexico a little bit, and this is the latest iteration. Had two events: the Grassroots Concerned Citizens in Action group, which is a great group that I spoke to last year, and then the Americans for Prosperity has a chapter down there as well. So was able to maximize my time, which is always appreciated, and visit the City of Crosses there. And seems like Las Cruces remains a pretty fast growing area. They seem to have more housing supply coming on board. I talked about the session with, and the good, bad, and the ugly of the legislative session with CCIA, and then talked about taxes and tax reform with Americans for Prosperity. So, uh, lots happening in Las Cruces, although we'll talk a little bit later. Well, I'll just talk about it now. But the Las Cruces area has really, and Doña Ana County have moved politically quite a bit to the left in recent years. It used to be kind of the swing area of New Mexico. Now it's, I would say, more progressive than the city of Albuquerque, certainly in its governance, except we can talk. There's pluses and minuses. The city council is very much to the left. Our mayor is maybe a little bit more to the left, even.
Yeah, so things coming out of Cruces, I've just, without any real effort, seen that, yes, they have moved a lot to the left. If the left right political spectrum of the United States, they were kind of there at the New Mexico Arizona border as far as left, and now they may be out in the ocean of the Pacific right now because some of the things that they have done, not just left, but they're things that just don't make sense and are likely to turn out badly. You know what I mean? So but to your point, the housing prices are cheap there. There's more land available. There's more developers. There's more builders, and you can get a pretty nice house in Las Cruces, a lot lower than you can in Albuquerque or even Rio Rancho, and so that may be part of the driver. So yeah, I do think it's a mixed bag. But Cruces used to be a pretty positive place to do business, and I do know some business owners there that are getting increasingly frustrated with the policies on a business side that really are impacting them negatively to no benefit for anyone.
Well, I've got to think that a lot of the folks moving to Las Cruces are retirees. Um, you know, I'm not in that boat yet, but the people I talk to, and kind of the retiree mentality is much more focused when it comes to the weather on being towards the hotter end of the spectrum. That's why Phoenix has always been such a top choice, even though I just would be miserable in a place that got that hot. Las Cruces, of course, is significantly warmer than we are here in Albuquerque. It's a smaller city still, but I could easily see it. Seems like it's growing a lot faster. Housing is going to be always at a premium, as we've talked to different folks in this metro area about the lack of land available to develop, for housing and whatnot because of the geographical barriers. Las Cruces doesn't necessarily have that, and if you're a retiree, Las Cruces is much more attractive in a lot of ways than El Paso because the income tax impact is offset, more than offset, because your chances are you're not earning a great deal of money. But the property taxes that you pay in Las Cruces are in New Mexico are going to be a lot lower than El Paso would be as well.
Yeah, no question about it. Now, God rest her soul, my deceased mother-in-law used to live in Las Cruces, and I'd go down there in the middle of the summer to visit her. And like in Biloxi Blues, I always used to tell her, "This is Africa hot down here in Las Cruces," because it's a little bit, it's a little bit. Most of the town is a little closer to the humidity of the valley than in
Ah,
Albuquerque. You know what I
fair,
mean?
fair.
So it's like it doesn't take much humidity when it's 95 or 100 to make you really feel it. But yeah, Cruces, I liked it. I went to school there. But yeah, it is a town that is in political transition. And I don't know how much farther it has to go. It might have arrived at that far left destination that places do seem to get around our country. But Santa Fe is maybe another example of that.
And I know there's concerns similar to uh, what we have here in Albuquerque with the homeless situation and the crime. And of course, there was that unfortunate shooting incident right as the legislature was wrapping up its business this session that made headlines. Of course, we had the judge who was harboring a Tren de Aragua illegal immigrant. So a lot of action having taken place in Las Cruces. Not a lot of it good. Uh, I just uh, I
Yeah, they
think
say there's no such thing as bad publicity. I think Cruces has gotten some bad publicity here
yeah,
recently.
yeah, I think it's safe to say that Las Cruces economically relies on agriculture and the university, and like so many other parts of New Mexico, diversifying and growing that economy would go a long way to really evening things out. But
Mhm.
uh, it is what it is. It's obviously in a different media market, and that changes the way we approach it in some respects. It's a place you got to get down there and go talk to the folks and really get to know what is happening. And along those lines, a policy issue that we've followed for many years here at Tipping Point, New Mexico, is rearing its ugly head down in the city of Crosses. A memo came out. It was sent, I guess, to all property owners, businesses down in the city. And the subject is, you are invited. I love being invited by my government. It's so wonderful. To help shape the future of energy, Las Cruces Utilities launches natural gas transition planning effort. And
Oh, Paul,
yes,
you,
sir.
they've already decided, but come and tell us why we're so wonderful. Is that what it
Exactly.
is?
So to meet, this is just reading a few excerpts from the letter. To meet goals set by the City of Las Cruces Climate Action Plan, we are looking at different ways to bring energy to homes and businesses, i.e., not natural gas. Our goal is to find solutions that keep energy reliable and affordable while meeting goals set by the City of Las Cruces Climate Action Plan. Quick, Wally, what would throw it out there? What is going to be reliable and as affordable as natural gas in heating homes and providing uh, the stoves and cooking and all the equivalent? Is there an energy source readily available?
Potentially the next generation of nuclear power plants, but absent that, I don't
I
see
think you
how
should go down there and
propose that.
yeah, propose that. I think that'll go over like a lead balloon.
Yeah. So yes, this is the, I don't know, not science, not economics based kind of virtue signaling that we see so much. And yeah, so this is one of those also that one that we can get to, quote, this net zero by 2050. So you can get to net zero by 2050. One of the ways you can do it is to shut down your town and have everybody move away. But short of that, it's one of those, I'm not sure. And Paul, I just want to say, natural gas, you can use it in two ways. And it's interesting. The quote unquote green revolution in the United States, the reason that has not been fabulously expensive. One of the main reasons is natural gas is cheap, and that's what the reliable energy source used to generate electricity is. And so, yeah, if we're gonna get rid of natural gas, what do you use it for in our homes? We use it to heat our homes, heat water, and cook. And if we're going to change all of that to electricity, That's going to cost an extreme amount of capital and a lot more electricity use, and that electricity has to come from somewhere. And some of it will come from renewables, and a lot of it will come from natural gas. And guess what, Paul? Unless you do a heat pump, which is big money, and have to have a great, highly insulated new home to even have that anywhere close to pencil out, we might use more natural gas. It just won't be within eye shot of the city council of Las Cruces as it happens. So it is a little bit ironic how these things play out in a stepwise fashion.
Well, I think it's safe to say that their desire, the the path that they would like to go on is wind and solar, maybe some batteries,
Oh no, more than some batteries. I
lots of
mean, yeah.
batteries.
Well, the if you're good again, if you're not going to use natural gas in Las Cruces, are you going to allow natural gas electricity inside of the town of Las Cruces? That is a very pertinent question.
So, if you are interested and you want to attend and take part in this event, Tuesday, May 20th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at City Hall, I am sure that there will be some significant interest, mostly from the radical environmental groups who tend to uh, love these things. This is catnip to those types of folks and organizations. So they will undoubtedly have their folks out, and I'm sure they will be as completely crazed and insane as ever in terms of the way that they would like to actually go, but isn't realistic to actually keep the lights on and keep your get your food warm and do so in a affordable way. Of course, being the exception, small modular nuclear reactors.
Yeah, and the key word is affordable. Can you do it? Yeah. California did it. What are their electric prices and what's energy going for in California? It's outrageous. And so, what's the secret sauce Las Cruces is going to use to avoid that? Right now, it doesn't exist. So, are they hoping for, again, some new to be invented technology or application of something that exists? Maybe, but maybe they're not telling the whole truth as well.
Yeah. Well, we will keep an eye on things. I am not sure if we can get somebody to the event, but we will talk to some of our friends and hopefully get a full report on this particular event. So, definitely a lot happening in Las Cruces. Uh, Next in line, I had the opportunity to sit down with Channel 7 KOAT and discuss the governor's contingency funds and her use of those tax dollars to entertain, to buy different things for her office and herself and for various parties. Uh, this is something that's always going to be fraught with issues as long as the legislature does not spell out two things. One is strict expectations for how the money is spent. It's very loosey goosey as it currently stands. And secondly, uh, what is eligible and not eligible for this particular contingency fund. And I guess third, the transparency or the lack thereof. You got to have some reporting. So the governor, as Channel 7 highlights, out buying alcohol, out having uh, events or spending money for events where she's allegedly, according to her calendar, taken the day off. Uh, just a lot of questions to be raised, but no red flags, no inherent, oh, this is illegal or corrupt, simply because the standard is so loosey goosey with regard to what is expected in terms of reporting and what those funds are limited to. Was Brian Cranston there after he was doing his commercials on litter, dressed up for Breaking Bad, or was he not there? Other folks, how important were they? What was their level of influence and their what was the desire to actually achieve with these spending these dollars? So that was a story that you can check out both at Channel 7 as well as our own Heirs of Enchantment and Rio Grande Foundation websites. You can click on the story and find out what the governor's up to. But any thoughts on that one, Wally?
Oh, Paul, this is one of those. It's very interesting. It reminds me of the parent who gives his kid the credit card and said, "Here, this card is for emergencies only," or in this case, this is for contingencies only. And then the kid goes and uses it for everyday expenses. It's like, well, it was emergency. I was out of gas. It was emergency. I was hungry and I needed to go to Taco Bell. Uh, yeah, there are no rules on this. And as New Mexico corruption goes, probably not the probably not at the tip of the spear, but it does because so much influence, overspending, and corruption is so rampant in New Mexico. It's just one of those when you get a get any insight into some of these funds being spent, I think it really raises all these questions because there is an awful lot of money that's being spent elsewhere that we never see in the paper. So, and as you said, were these the worst? Is there no way to justify any of these? Probably not. This is probably doesn't rise to the level of buying gifts and going out in COVID, or going to a fancy restaurant when you were shutting it down like the governor of California. But yeah, absolutely something to keep track of, and a system of what we spend money on and what's good to spend money on. That's not been New Mexico's strong suit to this point.
And really quick but amusing aside is that the governor apparently does not like to bring her own or send her own folks with cloth bags or reusable bags to the grocery store. She pays a lot of 10-cent fees to the local grocery stores using the contingency fund. So, uh, for somebody who has such
A
uh,
woke view of the
yeah,
world.
yeah, such an approach to energy issues and wants everybody else to go green. She's not exactly out there improving and implementing things herself. Of
Yeah,
course,
she doesn't want to take dirty bacteria laden bags and put
uh,
that carried chicken the last time to carry things. Oh, wait, most Mexicans don't want to do that. So,
exactly. So it's not surprising given that she also rides around in a black SUV on her gubernatorial business and
not of the electric persuasion.
not of the electric persuasion. Not that that would make it any more green. The size of the vehicle. I know that this is going to shock people, but if it takes a lot of gasoline to move your Land Cruiser or your Hummer down the road, it is also going to take a relatively high amount of electricity and battery to move your Land Rover electric or your Hummer electric down the road. It's just the way physics works.
Yeah, it's kind of an E equals MC squared sort of situation there, Paul.
Yeah. Uh, so in a bit of good news, I attended Albuquerque City Council, so you don't have to. And uh, I, you know, I get, people on one hand, they say they want to get the citizenry involved and engaged in these issues, and then they run these meetings, and it's incredibly slow. I learned a valuable lesson to sign up for the broad general public comment, which still isn't at the very beginning of the meeting, but it only costs you an hour, hour and a half
Mhm.
at city council versus speaking on a specific bill at that specific time because the action items are way down at the bottom of the agenda. So I was there for 3 hours yesterday evening. The good news is that the proposed 3/8 cent tax increase for higher quality of life in Albuquerque. Unfortunately, getting homeless off the street and fighting crime was not what it was for. Of course, that is something that we've already spent numerous tax dollars to fund. This one, among other things, received some support for potentially adding a new performing arts center on top of existing facilities. notably Pope Joy, of course, here in Albuquerque. So, uh, surprisingly enough, the tax increase failed overwhelmingly and will not go on the ballot this fall. So, good news from City Council in Albuquerque.
Yeah, that's amazing. Turning down tax increases is not it's not anybody's strong suit in New Mexico, but yeah, congratulations, Albuquerque city councilors, those that voted against this, because yeah, we have a lot of tax money. The city government, the city spending has grown. Uh, not to quote the current resident of the White House, but hugely over the past few years. And yeah, they're
Last 8 years, it's come close to doubling.
yeah, and so yeah, we have a lot of money in city government. We don't have a lot of high quality implementation. Where else have we heard that? Maybe public education comes to mind. So that seems to be a bit of a theme. It's like lots of money, not a lot of results.
Yeah, and one of the things that, I mean, there's so many items we wouldn't have the time to go through the wasteful spending at the city of Albuquerque, but the free buses still, because you can argue that, and I guess there's a laugher curve here somewhere when it
Right.
comes to government spending. It's we spend the money and there's a benefit, and then the benefit levels off, and then when you get to spending more money, it actually results in net harm, net degradation of the quality of life. And I'm referring to the free bus system. It's not that the bus system was a great success when they were still charging a whopping dollar for bus fare. It wasn't that it was massively growing and it was this great, fantastic, no complaints transit system. But by removing that dollar as an obstacle for people to get on the bus, and for, quite frankly, letting conditions at bus stops, nothing attracts the wrong element in Albuquerque like a shelter bus stop, especially along Central or along Montgomery. Those are two of the ones that I see the most. You wind up worsening the situation by spending more money, and that's classic bad government behavior. And the city of Albuquerque does it all the time.
Yeah, Paul, and it's a lot to ask for shoplifting gangs who are using the bus system to have to buy a ticket or to have correct change to get on the bus as a getaway. So, yeah, when you're talking, and again, there's a Laffer curve somewhere where it's like, sort of applies, but if it moves, tax it. Tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. If it stops moving, subsidize it. Well, heck, government government never taxes itself, but it certainly can subsidize things. And so, if no one's taking the bus, let's make it free. And then, but let's not do anything about the crime, and so that the bus is really dangerous. And then one of these years, we're going to have to say, well, maybe we could pay people to ride the bus. That's the next phase that we're looking at here in Albuquerque.
Yeah, and one of those, and this is of course state, federal, local, uh, and it really gets very complicated. But I'm just going to go out and say that by and large, so-called affordable housing and government involvement in all of those areas is one of the great boondoggles of our times. Because a housing market works. I know this is really wild and crazy, but you have some housing that is affordable. It's older, maybe smaller, and maybe in areas that aren't as exciting to live in, as convenient. And then you have housing prices that go up from there. Now, a critical factor, as I've said, is you have to have the public safety situation at least at a stable level. Yes, are people living in gated communities in the far Northeast Heights going to have less crime? Hopefully, that is the way it's supposed to work. Than you have in an apartment complex on Central, but you have to be able to manage it entirely, or the housing supply becomes unusable or people are unwilling to pay anything for it, then you have to get into government subsidies. And unless you solve the safety issue, now you're paying money for housing that people are only willing to use grudgingly. Why does this all matter? Well, there is a report from the Albuquerque Journal, April 27th, 2025. Here's how Albuquerque used the $23 million Housing Forward Fund. So this is one of many government programs. This is, I don't know if this is strictly local money, but the fact is that you get down into this story and there's an apartment complex called Beach Apartments. And the city council, questions spending $3.3 million to renovate a stairway at the Beach Apartments. A stairway, said Councilor Renee Grout. 3.3 million, Captain Obvious speaking. No offense to Councilor Grout, but $3.3 million is a lot of money to fix stairs. That's why she's on city council. And I really do. I like Renee Grout. She's a good city councilor, and I'm sure she had more to say about this
How
issue.
dare she say that, Paul?
Yes. So what happens is, and this is, as you might imagine, Beach Apartments. Where in Albuquerque would you have a Beach Apartments? Because we don't have a beach. Well,
we have Tingley Beach.
Tingley Beach. There you go. 2500 block of Tingley Drive Southwest. Built in 1984, acquired by the city in 1991, containing 74 units. Now, I've got to think that they could probably bulldoze the thing and provide 74 units for $3 million. But yeah, they had to completely reconstruct a stairwell that cost $3.3 million. So yeah, when you have an affordable housing fund of $23 million and $3.3 million of that goes to a single stairway at a single apartment complex, well, that money's not going to go very far now, is it?
No, it is not. But nothing is so affordable, Paul, as spending other people's money in the interest of doing good. And, why didn't a private developer want to take on that property? Probably because they knew that it should be torn down and there's no way they would ever put that much money into it. And heck, while we're at it, let's go ahead and designate that a historic place so we can never tear it down. We just have to keep pouring money into it.
Yeah.
It is a path that these projects get on. They get a life of their own. It's crazy.
Yeah. Boy, the city of Albuquerque, and I hope that we have a robust conversation about what is and has been happening in the city of Albuquerque. Obviously, homelessness, law enforcement, crime, huge issues. But with the budget having nearly doubled during Tim Keller's time in office, there's got to be a discussion there as well. It is a pet peeve of mine, of all candidates, from the governor's office to the legislature to local office. Yes, crime is an important issue, but crime is a complicated and multifaceted thing. However, if you develop an economy and you get people working, not on welfare programs, if you bring jobs and into the community, if you have an education system that is at least functional, I believe that, and you can make our city and our state attractive to both tax structure wise, regulatory structure, pro business environment, and crime. You can't forget that all of those together, then you can have a renaissance in your city and state. But just addressing crime is not enough by itself. It has to be part of a broader group of free market oriented, limited government reforms.
Yeah, and then Paul, there is a big element in Albuquerque that sees the criminals as always the victims in this situation, and some very interesting policies are either explicitly or allowed to occur. And if you go look at our homeless population, and as much as I've try to avoid it. There's a couple areas that I need to drive once or twice a month. There's a lot going on there that is not a housing problem. It's not a crime problem. It is an enforcement problem. And if people want to do fentanyl and live in a tent, a lot of them have figured out that Albuquerque is the best place to do that because they get the least amount of hassles here compared to other cities where they've tried to do the very same thing.
And on that note, I will just mention that having attended city council in Albuquerque just last night, there were a significant, I believe, 3 or 4 different groups of advocates or different people advocating on behalf of kind of you could call it a laissez-faire, very hands-off homeless policy in the city. You'd think that with all of the challenges that we face at all levels of government with the homeless situation, that we would see much more of we've got to do something, we've got people causing all kinds of problems. And I realize many of those people may have gotten frustrated with the process and given up or are just don't have the time. But the advocates for the homeless and not doing anything to restrict where they camp and where they stay, those people have the time and are willing to go to city council and not just talk, but often berate the city council about their treatment of the homeless. And so, as much of a pain and as much of you could argue, a waste of time in some respects, going to city council can feel like uh, when all they hear about is one side of the issue coming from the other side. Uh, I think it does have an impact there. So it's been a while since I've been to a city council meeting in person. I think probably the last time I was really involved in any issues at city council was during COVID when they were doing remote testimony frequently. But uh, just a eye-opening experience there. But moving on, uh, oil markets are interesting right now, Wally, and one of those interesting things is that at least for the time being, the most up-to-date information we have is that production in New Mexico remains on a upward trajectory. It has basically septupled, as in 7 times increase since 2011, 2012, that time frame. Production has gone dramatically upward along with revenues. Prices had been relatively stable, although they'd gone up to close to $140 a barrel. Now we're fighting to stay over $60 a barrel. And Wally, you have a lot of experience with energy issues and the energy industry. Uh, we're all enjoying lower prices at the pump right now. We're questioning, of course, how much of this is driven by Trump's pro-energy policies, how much of this is driven by fears of recession, and we'll just kind of move beyond that because there's no real way to tell at this point. Uh, but I do think it's important to analyze the situation as it stands. How low, kind of like the limbo, how low is too low for the Permian Basin and New Mexico's producers to go before we start to see an impact in not money's going to flow in, but not at the same high levels as the prices drop. But when will they start to pull the plug on production in some of these areas in New Mexico? That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, and so here's the thing: it's not necessarily what the spot price is today; is what it is over a longer period of time. And so, huge shifts in your drilling plan and your completion plan and the like is not made just by a week or two or sometimes even a month of a little bit of weakness in price, but it certainly has a role. The other issue is that the spot price is just that. It's not the price that there's a lot of contracts that are already out there, and you may have either contracts or you may have futures contracts where you've basically locked in your price at a higher level, and so you can afford to keep doing what you're doing and not slow things down. And then the other thing is that it doesn't seem like in general all wells are different, and but it's usually not a good idea to shut in production from a recently completed horizontal well. What happens a lot of times is there will be an inventory of wells that are drilled and ready to be completed. And by completed, I mean hydraulic fracturing before they're brought into production. And so when the price is down, you might let the inventory of uncompleted wells grow a little larger and not put the, tens, sometimes millions to $10 more million to do the hydraulic fracturing on that until the price situation is a little more favorable. So, and then to the question, which you didn't want to answer, and I don't have an answer for it. Why is the price? That it's a market, you know what I mean. But also keep in mind the spot price is not necessarily the price that all oil is trading at today. There's a lot of other things, but it's certainly a good indication. And over time, new contracts tend to follow where the spot price is, but it does take some time to get all that washed through the system, as it were.
Yeah. As we sit here right now, the crude oil price on Yahoo Finance is $59.30. Brent crude, of course, that's I think super lights, whatever, somewhat fancier. I think it's out of Europe, $62.30. So uh, definitely well down from highs, even as early as the beginning of the Trump administration. And so, uh, again, I'm going to enjoy it when I'm at the gas station. Obviously, I am of the variety that is willing to, let's see how New Mexico government does, but the private sector, in terms of benefits that they derive from higher oil and gas prices, if it is a sustained downturn and we get closer to $50 or $40 a barrel, that would have, I think, some profound impacts on production and the finances of the state of New Mexico.
Yeah, and then just one last real quick point, Paul, is let's look at the number of drilling rigs that are operating in the United States right now. There's 584 that are operating in the United States. Texas has 271. It used to be in the olden days, it was a lot closer to 5, 6, 7 to 1. Uh, New Mexico has 100 drilling rigs operating in New Mexico right now. And then one final point on that, you also can't necessarily look at the number of drilling rigs operating today and compare that in terms of how productive it would have been, just a decade ago, because they've gotten their logistics a lot tighter where they can do more drilling in less time and spend less time down in between. And so, yeah, the fact is that New Mexico is going great guns. We're producing, over 2 million barrels of oil per day. And so a lot of things are, it's an important part of, not only the New Mexico economy, but the U.S. economy. And frankly, the world price of oil is impacted more by this little 2 million person state of New Mexico than maybe any would have thought just a few years ago.
Yeah. And finally, uh, 7 years after the Yazzie versus Martinez decision, 7 years after Judge Singleton, told New Mexico's public education department to come up with a plan to serve Native Americans and underserved students because the system was inadequate. $2 billion spent since that decision. And now another judge has told PED to come up with another plan, theoretically, to comply with Yazzie versus Martinez. Of course, we have discussed at length the failures of the education system and, of course, the COVID situation and the governor's decision to lock kids out of school for over a year, and that has had profound impacts over and above all the other challenges that we face. But $2 billion has been spent. Results have not been forthcoming, and I just it's like the memes where the guy has like there's a guy with a stick and he's like poking at something that he's hoping to get moving or do something, and that is the public education department writ large, the education system of New Mexico. You can poke it, you can infuse it with $2 billion of cash, you can get judges very angry and talking about how it's not working and not doing what it's supposed to do. But unless you have an accountability structure at the legislative level uh, and the governor's office, we're going to just see the same thing happen.
And Paul, I remember when Yazzie first came out, one of the issues there was they pretty much equated do better in terms of do better educationally for this group of people. They equated that with spend more. And as we've talked, spend more and do better in education, unfortunately, aren't very correlated, or we would have been done. We would have been declaring victory and going home on the Yazzie suit. So it'll be interesting to see if a judge will. Are we going to have judges now look at education policy? You know what I mean? To say, well, the spending isn't obviously working. Maybe you ought to think about how you're doing things. Uh, that's not the sort of judges are good for some things, but it does not seem like that is something that I would be very comfortable with. And if you wanted it to get worse, maybe let judges decide how things are done. And if you don't need to look too far for that, just look at the Albuquerque Police Department consent decree from the feds. Once you get a quasi judge in there second guessing every decision, do things get better? Well, maybe they do, and maybe just over time, everyone declares victory and goes home a decade from now.
There you go. Well, um, we shall leave it there. And thank you for listening to this week's episode. Find all episodes at tippingpointsnm.com or at the Rio Grande Foundation's YouTube channel. Subscribe to the show at Apple, Stitcher, or tell Google Home to play Tipping Point New Mexico. Thanks to Path 3 Marketing for producing this show.